30 or so signed up, so it's pretty neat. I think we're set up for about 35. So, okay, our opening prayer, I'll just take a passage from the book of Revelation. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Now have salvation and power come, the kingdom of our God, and the authority of his anointed one. For the accuser of our brothers is cast out, who accuses them before God day and night. They conquered him by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of their testimony. Love for life did not deter them from death. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you that dwell therein. But woe to you, earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great fury, for he knows he has but a short time. Let us pray. Dear God our Father, we ask your blessing upon us this evening, and your Holy Spirit, which divinely inspired St. John to write this wonderful, mysterious book. Please send your Spirit that it may be with us and help us to understand fully and deeply the depth of your love, your goodness, your presence within our church, even today. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Okay, so maybe one little piece of advice I could give you is this would be a class or a book where maybe you could, in a little way, check your head at the door and bring your heart in here. Okay, so the feeling side of things. All right, so quick question. When I read that opening prayer, now have salvation and power come, read that passage, what was your heart? What were you feeling? So now what did you think about it? Or I don't want you to make a comment on it necessarily, but what were you feeling? Did you notice, pick up anything?
Peace.
Peace? Because this whole feeling side of it is a helpful way to understand things. Want me to read it again?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll read it again. Now have salvation and power come, the kingdom of our God and the authority of his anointed one. For the accuser of our brothers is cast out, who night and day accuses them before our God. We conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Love for life did not deter them from death. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you that dwell therein. But woe to you, earth and sea, for the devil has come upon you, in great fury, for he knows he has but a short time. Okay, gut check right here. Gut check. What were the feelings? Yes.
Justice.
Justice.
Salvation.
Salvation.
Fear.
Fear.
Power.
Power.
Worry.
Worry.
Knowledge.
Knowledge.
I was happy that the devil has a short time.
Happy that the devil has a short time. Rejoice was a word where they told you how to feel. There. To be pretty obvious.
Victory.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Victory.
Anybody?
Victory.
Victory. Felt like you won. Good. Okay, so which of the answers that we just heard from you are the correct ones? E. All of the above. Okay, get the idea? This is not about like getting this, what's the right feeling or the right interpretation about something, because it is very possible, and this is the way things are with the Bible in general, but very much so with this book, that many of these emotions, these feelings, are going to be different from each other. They're going to be like in conflict with each other or contrasting each other, and that's okay, that's good. That is an appropriate way to sense the meaning here. Okay, so let's go to, so I've got a kind of a outline for us here, class outline. So we think of the Bible as a book. And did you know that the word Bible actually means book in Greek? So that is the word biblos, is the Greek word for book. But the Bible is better thought of as a little library. Everybody understand that? Does that make sense? How many books are in the little library? Anybody know? I really should have checked this before I did this class tonight. I got a round idea. You counted them, Mike?
I counted 46 in the Old Testament.
46 in the Old Testament. Very good.
27 in the New Testament.
27. Okay, I was going to go 73, 74. So 73 total books in the little library called the Bible. Now, if you went to a library or a bookstore, you would find several different sections, with several different kinds of books and writings. Obvious fact, right? This is also true of the newspaper. But let's just kind of stay with library and bookstore for a moment here. But you can go into newspaper when I ask the question. All right, let's name as many as we can. Different sections in a library or in a bookstore, meaning like different kinds of writings. What would you go in? You might ask the librarian, where could I find?
The store.
Pardon?
The store.
The store?
Historical.
Historical. Thank you. History.
Science fiction.
Sci-fi. Sci-fi, right. That's one. Yep.
Mysteries.
Mysteries.
Biography.
Biography.
Comedy.
Comedy. Philosophy. Poetry.
Religion.
Religion.
Nonfiction.
Nonfiction. Which leads to fiction. We always got fiction. Okay?
Drama.
Or literature. Or drama. Plays. We don't have to name them all, but boy, without even trying too hard, there's a lot, huh? Okay, how about in the newspaper, real quick? Fiction. Fiction, yeah.
That's obituaries.
Obituaries.
Editorial.
Editorials. Op-ed, short for opinion.
Culture.
Editorial. Pardon?
Culture.
Culture.
Sports.
Travel.
Sports.
And travel.
Travel and leisure.
Cartoon.
Cartoons. That was gonna be my first one. That was gonna cartoons. I'm sorry. Weather. Very good. Okay. So, I'm not trying to be oversimplifying this, but this is very important for what I want to do is really connect with something we already know and understand before we try and understand what you think you don't understand. So my hope is that you're going to understand this a lot better by just understanding what we already know very well. So we know this. Each section or kind of writing, they have their own characteristics and rules for their individual style of writing. Okay, the formal word for kinds of writing, so it's a French word, genre, probably heard that, okay? Genre, just looks like the word genus, like kind, okay? In Latin, literary genre would be another one. Basic rule, as you might guess, is to correctly understand a certain kind of writing, you have to take into account the characteristics or rules of the writing, and as well as the time and the culture of which this writing occurred. Right? Basic? Okay, but very important. So, a little quick lesson from my uncle, now in heaven with God, of happy memory, from when I was a kid growing up, and he's talking about the Bible, and he might have even been bringing up Revelation, and he said, you know, he's talking about, like, you see the headline, and it says, Indians scalp Yankees. What does that mean? It depends what page of the newspaper you're on, right? Are we on the historical page? Are we actually talking about American Indians, or are we talking about Cleveland Indians? Okay, so basic things, just we understand this. So here is a fun fact about the book of Jonah. in the Bible that's directly related to this point. Okay, Jonah is one of the shortest books in the Bible. You're all probably pretty familiar with it. Jonah and
The whale.
the whale. All right. Your impressions of the book? Thoughts about the book? Anybody?
I relate to Jonah.
You relate to Jonah?
He was angry and he didn't want them to get there.
He was angry and he didn't want to do what he was told to do, so he went the other direction. Good. I think there's 3 chapters in the book. So here's here's the fun fact about this. Jonah was a prophet. A prophet is sent by God to speak a word to a certain people about something particular. Jonah was ordered to go to, or was it Tarshish, okay? And he didn't want to go, so he gets on the ship. You know the story. Big storm comes. They realize Jonah's the reason for the storm. They throw him into the sea. He gets swallowed by the whale. Okay, so you know the story. Then he spit out on the land and ends up going where he's supposed to go. This book sounds kind of like a fish story, doesn't it? It's a whopper. This is a whale of a story.
Or a mammal story.
Or a mammal story. Very good. Thanks, Mike. A very large mammal, aka fish story. Because it's like, what? Do you know what was happening at the time? Prophecy was many books of prophets, right? In the Old Testament. They had made predictions saying God would restore Israel in this way and make it glorious. There were lots of prophecies about that. And guess what? It wasn't happening the way they thought it would. They kind of got their land back, but the glory wasn't even close. And so guess what the people were starting to feel about prophecy? It's not all that it's cracked up to be. And so this book is kind of an expression of that. It's a little bit of a ridiculous book. Isn't that interesting? Okay, when I read that I went like, wow, okay. So, let's go on. Our divinely inspired little library, the Bible, also has several different kinds of writings within the 2 main sections, Old Testament, New Testament. Okay, once again, let's do our best. What kinds of literature, what kinds of literary genres are in the Bible that you're aware of? So you can go Old Testament or New Testament, doesn't matter at this point. And you can write some down as we call them out. It might be helpful. This probably will be helpful.
The story of Jesus.
Okay, so the stories of Jesus. So this is its own kind of genre, which actually is called Gospels. Okay, so you can just put Gospels down as one, all right? And the reason I say that, because a Gospel has a particular, once again, it's a style of writing that has a particular purpose. The purpose is to bring people to faith in Christ. The purpose of the Gospels, was not necessarily to do a biography of Jesus. Okay? See the difference? Which is why then, there's a whole section of his life that is missing. So you've got the stories around the Christmas stories, and then we got one story when he's a teenager and gets left home alone in the temple. You all know that story. And then it jumps to 30 years old. Okay, so it wasn't trying to do a biography. So a gospel is its own kind of literary genre. What else? Prophetic, obviously, we've talked about prophecy. Okay, so it's in the Old Testament. There were books of the prophets, major prophets and minor prophets.
The Psalms are their own.
The Psalms, very good. And if you want a way to think about the Psalms, it's hymns, okay? Hymns that we aren't allowed to sing in church anymore. Okay, these are the songs. David was the singer. So what we have, it's kind of like this is the lyrics. We don't necessarily have the music, the accompaniment, what it sounded like when they sang them, but these were songs. Thank you. Psalms, very good. What else? Prophets. So Mike mentioned, I think, history earlier. So there are historical books, all right, especially in the Old Testament. If you had to guess, which would be the one historical book in the New Testament? that would really qualify as history? That's a good one. Good question.
After the apostles.
Acts of the Apostles. Very good. Excellent. Make sense? This is early church history. Here's what happened after Jesus rose and ascended. We got stories of Paul and Peter and James and John, all the apostles, what they were doing. Okay? But Paul's letters aren't necessarily history, although they do have some history in it, but they're letters. That's not, I just gave you another one. Okay? So, epistles. Okay? Circular letters. Letters that were meant to be circulated, passed around, read in different churches. That's a genre. Okay? Others. What else? A few more, maybe? Does anybody know the, Ed, you probably know. So what's the name of the genre of the book, the main genre of the book we're talking about, Revelation? It's called apocalyptic literature. Okay, now that is its own genre. We do not have a genre in America or in our day. Okay, as I'm going to say later, apocalyptic literature had a short shelf life on the earth, and it was started with the Jewish people in the year 200 before Jesus, and it went to about the year 100 because Revelation was written right around that time, around 90 or 95. Okay? 300 years roughly where apocalyptic literature was being written and read. It's its own genre. Very good. What else? Yes?
Would sermons or teaching be a genre?
Are you thinking Old Testament?
I was just thinking of.
So that-
Sermon on the Mount.
No, this would be within the gospel itself.
Okay.
Yeah, so then at that point you're talking about maybe different styles of teaching on Jesus' part.
Okay.
So parables wouldn't be a literary genre, but it would be a device, a way of teaching by telling stories, okay, but there isn't necessarily I don't know, maybe I'm wrong in that, a whole book of, that's simply parables, but it was a common way of teaching. So what else? So I thought what you were getting at, so there is a whole body of literature in the Old Testament called wisdom literature. Wisdom. So here are the sayings of the wise ones, the wise men of old. So who were some of the names? Who's the one that really had, he asked for the gift of understanding. Remember that neat story? God comes to him in a dream and says, ask for anything you want and I'll give it to you.
Solomon.
And he asked for understanding. I want to understand human nature. I want to understand people because I'm going to be a king. His name was Solomon. So you've got sayings of Solomon, the Song of Solomon, okay? And actually, the Song of Songs, that is another genre. And here's the poetry. Somebody said poetry earlier. It's love poetry. There's another one that's in there. Not a whole lot of books like that. What else? I'm running out here. Pardon?
Job.
So Job. Job would be among the wisdom literature, Ken. That would be one of the, I believe, in the class of wisdom literature. It's the story of how to negotiate life and especially suffering, okay, is the story of Job. That would be part of wisdom. So you're going to have like the early history, meaning like the books of Genesis. So you're going to have some myth material there where they had to tell stories because nobody was around. We had to tell the story of how the world began. Okay, Adam and Eve, the stories of creation. So you're going to have myth-like material there. Let's see what else. We got the letters. I think that's enough. Okay. Yes.
While we're on the subject of genres, I wonder why there isn't any, unless you can tell me there is, any comedy anyway.
Okay.
Something about humor.
Bob just asked, I wonder why there isn't any comedy in the Bible, any
Wouldn't it be nice
humor.
if there was? Just-
Pardon?
Wouldn't it be nice if there was just a little?
There is. There's more than a little. You have to look for it though, because, I guess it's going to be in there. But the purpose of a particular book wasn't necessarily just to entertain. Okay, it was about either to teach or to bring people closer to God there are going to be lots of funny things. So one of the things I like saying in church is the first instance of humor in the Bible is the Adam and Eve story. Everybody know my favorite one here? God comes to Adam and says, why did you do this? Why did you eat from the tree? It was her, the one you put here with me. I think that's funny, but it's sad too at the same time.
But it works.
But it works, right? You know? So what's another one? God tells Abraham that he is going to father a child. And I can't remember if it was he or Sarah, but they laughed. They laughed. Sarah laughed. All right? You're kidding. You're kidding, God, right? Kind of fun, but it's human. So it's human stuff. So, yeah. There's actually a book I'll have to look at. You know, I was looked through. It's called The Humor of Jesus. So, oh, here's one. Here's a good one. The nickname for James and John. This is funny. James and John, the apostles.
Sons of fire, what is it?
Sons of, not fire, thunder.
Thunder.
Why did they get this name? Sons of Thunder.
Sounds like wrestlers.
It sounds like wrestlers. Okay, these brothers fought with each other. No, that's not the correct answer.
Did they
Anybody
have a
know?
town destroyed or something?
Yeah, all right, you got it, Ken.
Yeah.
Because they're traveling as a group. I don't know if it was a big group or just Jesus, James, John, Peter, whatever. They're about to go through, they want to get to Jerusalem. They got to go through Samaria, okay, Samaritan territory. And the Samaritans say, you're not coming through here because you're Jews. John says, Lord, should we call down thunder from heaven to destroy them? And Jesus just says, turns to them to rebuke them. What's wrong with you? All right? Now what makes it even? So then he gives them a nickname, the Sons of Thunder. That's funny. And it's especially funny when you remember that at one point, the Sons of Thunder's mommy came up to Jesus and said, I have a request. Make sure that my boys sit one at your right and one at your left when you come into your kingdom. Now these were big, tough wrestlers, huh? Their mommy is talking for them. Okay, I'll quit now, but is this helping, Bob? It's funny. It's funny stuff, but you gotta kind of like look for it, dig a little bit. It's right, not gonna be necessarily, okay. So I think we did pretty good. Okay. The book in question, the book of Revelation, not surprisingly, is a very unique book in the Bible. But not because it's the only example of one kind of genre. Okay, what I forgot to mention is when Ed mentioned apocalyptic literature is a genre, there are books or chapters in the Old Testament that have this as well. So Daniel is one, okay? And I think Ezekiel, another. There was some other literature, but I don't know that it's in the Bible. Okay, so, but what makes Revelation unique is because it is a hybrid. So we're going to bring 3 different genres together from the Bible, and they're going to all meet in the same book. In the apocalyptic, I think it's safe to say this is going to be the dominant one, but it has 2 others. So can anybody guess? So if you go back to the list of what we came up with earlier about the different, pardon? Prophetic, very good. So prophecy, that is another one that is in there. And the last one, John was taking some lessons from St. Paul. And so he kind of wrote it a little bit in the form of a letter. This is a letter, circular letter to the churches, letter meant to be read. Okay? So if we're talking, all right, what are we talking about with the Revelation now? We're talking about these 3. Okay, so all we're doing, we're just kind of easing our way into this. Say like, okay, what section of the library are we in? What section of the bookstore? And we find out it's a book that belongs in a couple of the sections, but mainly the apocalyptic section. All right, I think we can turn the page over now, number 2. Any questions up to this point? Okay, pretty basic, but we'll start moving hopefully. All right, as I mentioned, apocalyptic literature made its appearance for a brief period in history, beginning with the Jewish people, concluding with the one book from our book Revelation, so 200 BC to 100 AD. All right, symbolism is one of the most characteristic traits of the apocalyptic literature. Okay, so like I said, the earlier basic point about if you're going to understand a book correctly, you got to understand the rules, how it works, what its kind of assumptions are, its presuppositions, what its characteristics. So when you read the cartoons and you see a line going from a speaker's mouth to a bubble, you know that these are the words. Okay, what do you see if the writer of the cartoon wants you to believe that the cartoon character is only thinking something?
Circles.
Remember that? Circles? Little circles? Remember? Like, and then circles to the bubble? See, this is stuff. Now, there's the genre. And like I said, you know this because you grew up with this. You don't necessarily think about it. And when you encounter a cartoon, you know right away. You're there. But somebody who didn't grow up in America, or maybe from, many years ago and cartoons didn't exist, they would look at this and, it might confuse them, just as in some ways the book of Revelation confuses us. Okay, so it's a good little example. Symbolism. All right, here's one of the basic characteristics, most characteristic traits. The use of symbols is not something that is foreign to us, although the meaning and connotation of the symbols in the book of Revelation may be foreign to us. Some of those may be. A lot of them maybe are, okay? But some of the symbols will actually be common, part of human life anywhere on earth. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. I'm just going to kind of lay out the thought here. Is some of the stuff is going to be foreign to us, but not all of it. There are going to be things that we're going to understand because we're human beings. Okay, and then Carl Jung, for you psychology fans, he came up with something called, and I thought of the word finally, I put shared human unconscious. He called it the collective unconscious. Okay, so he believed that there are certain symbols, like things that appear in people's dreams, that are going to be common to people all over the world. Okay, so he just saw that in, either in literature, reading literature from other cultures, or talking with people of different countries, things like that. So, before we go any farther, let us get in touch with our own symbols and our own use of symbols. So these symbols could be colors, objects, animals, numbers, and proper names. All right? Once again, let's name as many as we can. In general, a symbol is something that is pointing to something else. So pointing to a meaning, and not just one meaning, okay? And so that's, like I said earlier, when I raised that question about what did you feel when I read the opening prayer, and a lot of you said very different things, and it's not a question of, okay, which one was right, which one was wrong. All of them can be right, and there can be, a certain degree of truth to each of them. Same thing with symbols. It's not necessarily just one thing that it's getting at. It's pointing to something outside of itself. Very often they can't evoke, there's an important word, it's going to evoke something deep in us, certain feelings or meanings or connotation. So, maybe we could just do this together, but I wanted to have you just do some little work at your table to try and come up with some things. But in our culture, or let me drop down here. Drop down below see the quote where it says "for a generation." Okay, so I saw this in one of the little commentary books about Revelation. So the writer said this. He said, "For a generation," and he's talking about us, "whose mental eye has been starved of imagery. In some ways, Revelation is the most important book in the Bible. So imagery, meaning images or symbols. And I read that and I went like, I don't know, do you think we're starved for imagery?
We're saturated, as you said.
That's my comment you kept reading, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm going like, I think we're saturated with it. Because especially once camera and TV and computer, it's like pictures, magazines, I forgot, how can I forget magazines? Pictures, we're saturated with images. One of the things that I believe, and I'm sure you would agree, that we are starved is use of imagination. So then, this was dovetailing with another thought. I heard this years ago and it made sense. So this psychologist, I'm going to quote later, Bruno Bettelheim, he made this statement. He said, Walt Disney ruined fairy tales. Why do you think he said that?
Made them seem so real.
Pardon?
He made them seem so real.
He made him seem so real? Okay, you're close.
And you could see
It's
it.
like when a book is made into a movie, the movie can ruin the book for you, because in your mind,
Okay.
imagining the characters look and act a certain way, but then the movie makes it concrete.
Right.
And that becomes like how you think about that particular piece of literature.
Correct. Okay, so Mike's getting more to the point where he's saying that once a book is made into a movie, the movie puts an actual picture on the characters in the book. And then that's what you see, and you go like, oh, that's what Pinocchio looks like. Or
Yeah,
who else?
Think of like Lord of the Rings, you have all this imagery of the characters through those 3 long books. Well, now, when you think of, Bilbo Baggins or Frodo, you're thinking of the movies, because
Right.
that's like in your head.
Right. Okay, and so what the psychologist was saying, the reason it's even more than just the fact that, okay, now you have a picture, he's saying that because of this, fairy tales were meant to be read to children, and where did they do their magic work?
Imagination. Right.
In the imagination of the child as they were listening to the story. That's where the magic took place, because the stories are powerful stories that children to grow up. And so once things became so visual, now, well, you don't need to use your imagination. We don't need to use it so much anymore, right? Okay, well, I was thinking when I was writing all this, I was thinking of, I didn't grow up in that time, of course, but maybe my parents, and I don't know if anyone remember them saying, do you remember when we used to watch the radio? Is that a phrase? Is that right? Before TV, they sat in front of the radio and they listened to mysteries, right? The Shadow Knows. Is that one of them? That was one of them, right?
Yeah, Orson Welles.
Orson Welles. Oh, that was one. Was that the one that created a huge
Oh, yeah, they thought it was.
terror? They thought it was real? War of the Worlds? Was it War of the Worlds? Is that right?
Yeah.
But in any case, people are sitting in front of a radio, they're listening to a story be told, and what are they doing? They're working. And it's good work. It's the work of imagination. You're thinking with, right?
A Stephen King novel is much more frightening than a movie.
A Stephen King novel is much more frightening than a movie. Thank you, Bob. There's an insight from a man who has read and seen Stephen King. Okay, so my point here is we're not starved for imagery. It's like we have too much and we're not using our imaginations, which then might be contributing to the fact that we come to a book like this and we're going to struggle. That might be part of it, okay? It's just, that could be part of it. Here's a cultural thing now, whereas folks of, centuries ago, they wouldn't have had this handicap that we have. We don't think of it as a handicap because we think of it as we're so blessed that we have got these screens, with us all the time, and the picture's always there. Okay, so what I wanted us to do before we go on is to try and name some symbols in our culture. Okay, real quick, the story then, Mr. Miyagi's words from the Karate Kid movie. He says, Daniel-san, When someone points at moon, wise man looks at moon. Fool looks at finger. That would be in the wisdom literature, right? But it's good, it's true. So, do you see what the finger is? This finger is the symbol. It's pointing to something. And so the whole idea is not to get too hung up, and then that's probably what happens when you read the book, right? Is you get hung up on the symbol and not looking to what it's pointing to, but it's understandable, okay? So, what I thought we could do is just take a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes. We don't have to do this too much, or maybe we should, I don't know, should we break it up into groups of people? Like, who wants to do colors? Who wants to do objects? Who wants to do animals? Who wants to do numbers? How about if we do it that way? This might be better than everybody trying to do everything. All right, let's divide up the group. Okay, so how about all these tables over here? How about if you guys do colors and objects? Okay, you're just going to try and think of different colors or different objects and what they symbolize. Okay, middle group here, not a big group, or if you guys want to be in the group too. How about you guys do animals and numbers? And then the last group over here, proper names. Proper names. So something like I'm thinking of is Titanic. It's a proper name, but isn't it a symbol? Is it something that all you have to do is say that word and it's pointing to something, right? It's pointing to a lot of things. Is that okay? You think?
Yeah.
That might be the hardest one. Proper names, that might be the toughest one. Okay. Well, this group over here, just to let you know, I used one of the proper names I came up with, and it turned into something that's going to make this night even more fun than it's been already. All right, there is a prophecy. I hope. I got a proper name that's going to be really fun. Okay, so let's just take a few minutes, and if you guys want to dabble in some of the other ones as well, I don't know. So just name an object or an animal or a name or something, and then what's it pointing to? What is it evoking? And it could be a feeling. Okay, but it's like I said, this group over here, you're going to stay with colors, objects, middle group, animals. Yeah, you guys are doing animals. And then proper names. Okay. We'll just take a few moments.
I put Judah, because, right, that's the proper name is the trader, right?
Yeah, you can. That's fine. Could afford it. I'm pretty sure that's how it came associated with royalty.
Some objects.
Objects.
We had the scales.
Scales.
Symbolize liberty, law, justice.
Justice, good.
When you see the Statue of Liberty, that's freedom.
Torch.
Yeah, the torch. Cross symbolizes faith, redemption, or
The cross.
salvation.
Symbolizing faith, redemption.
When you see a grain of wheat, symbolizes bread.
Grain of wheat.
Prosperity.
Prosperity, okay. Okay, very good. Ken?
Pink means feminine,
Pink means feminine,
black means sorrow,
black means sorrow,
blue means masculine or sad or depressed.
blue is masculine, okay, the blues and the pink, right, from the baby, right?
Yellow is scared,
Blue could also be sad and depressed. Yellow, fear, afraid.
rainbow's gay lesbian,
Rainbow is a symbol. There's a bunch of colors, right? The whole spectrum there.
I think I'm done.
You think you're done? Okay, thank you very much. That's good. I was about to say that. I think you're done. Okay, to the disgruntled couple in the middle there. Okay, what'd you guys come up with?
Well, we had a lot of those same ones. With black, we had death.
Death, right? Black
Gold,
death.
We had gold, which was expensive. And
Gold, right? Gold standard, gold.
value.
Good.
Yeah. For objects, we had a star, which was something special or above normal.
A star, special, above normal. That's right, stars, football stars, music star, right? Good one.
We had like an anchor would be something of stability.
Anchor, that was one I came up with. Very good, an anchor.
So we got to fire and kept getting heat.
And that's when you guys started to, it's where you had to go to separate corners, huh? Okay. Very
I
good.
had purified with it. but-
Excellent. No, that's good. These are good. See this? We're not starved for imagery. We've got a lot and not too hard to come up with some. Bill, Teresa?
We had an abbreviated list, I think.
An abbreviated list?
All right, we could do rings. Okay, we have robes.
Ring,
We'll
robe,
start with the ring. Ring we thought was a covenant.
covenant, okay.
Royalty.
Ring could be royalty, very good.
Never ending, like continuous.
Yeah, the continuous, right? Excellent.
And robes.
Robes are authority,
Robes, authority,
religious or deity.
religious or justice, laws, court laws, right? The robes of justice, right, of the judge.
And then we have the crown, which is a king, power, authority.
Excellent, very good. These are some actually that are on the sheet later on that are in the book of Revelation itself. So, very good. You're moving right in the direction we're going ultimately. Annette?
I had a lot of the same colors. I had black, was nighttime to me,
Night for black,
and gold, I had indicated, I had it as wealth. As objects, the only thing I had was casket symbolizes death.
A casket, okay.
I don't know. Popped into my head. What
Okay, what are you gonna do? That's it?
That's it.
Right. You know, and some of this where she said it's popped into her head, that's kind of also part of it. It's like when you're reading things or hearing something, kind of like, you know, what Freud would call like a free association thing. That's usually an okay way to go. It's just like, it just kind of, where does it take you right away? And then it's kind of showing that it's connected with something deep in you. Or so, yeah. Okay, middle group had, what, animals and numbers, right? Okay, Bob, want to start?
For animals, the lion, master, leader.
Lion,
King,
master, leader, king,
ox,
Ox, strength.
power.
strength and power, very good.
Eagle, vision.
Eagle,
Freedom,
vision,
respect.
freedom.
The dragon or sea monster, mythical imagination, fear of the unknown, and terror.
Mhm.
And lamb, sacrifice, follower.
Lamb, sacrifice, okay, follower, that's right. So lamb is not a shepherd, they need a shepherd. Good, okay, Deb?
Lamb, I thought, first thing I thought of was Jesus, horns, the devil, or dragon or sea monster,
Good, horns could be the devil. Mhm.
wings, dove, eagle, and for lion, ox, and eagle, I also said strength.
Mhm. Okay, very good. Well, you guys cheated a little bit. You went down to my list down there.
That's what we were supposed to do.
No, I know, I could see that now from the fact that you did that. That's okay, no problem. Because it's all shared, these things are common, as that was my point earlier. These are common to the cultures. So the list on the bottom is things that are from the book of Revelation, but I was just kind of wanting us to just get in touch with our own in our culture. Sean, did you come up with any?
Well, we
took a lot of them already.
Okay,
I know the number 666, I know that's.
okay, number 666 it's in our culture, but it's in our culture because of the book of Revelation. So it's the number of the beast, the devil.
The dove too, with snake eyes, I don't know.
Snake eyes, very good. All right, prophecy of things to come later on. Excellent.
And the number 100,000, if that means anything.
100,000, so yeah, just like, all right, I told you once, I told you 1,000 times. Okay, how about any others? Lisa?
Eagle, I had majestic or patriotic.
Mm-hmm.
Lion is courageous, powerful, stuck with somebody else.
Right, like those.
Dragon or sea monster is mythical. Horns is evil.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. How about other numbers? Let's stay with numbers here. In our culture, what numbers have symbolic value in our culture?
13.
13, right?
21, illegal.
21.
Seven.
So what's 7 about? Oh, lucky 7.
Seven's Jesus' number.
That's Jesus' number. Jesus is lucky. Here's one that a priest should not be saying at a night like this. A 10. Right? Wasn't that? Didn't that start with? Wasn't there a movie, Bo Derek or something? I didn't see the movie. I just want to let you know. I didn't see the movie. Okay, I just heard about it. But that stuck in our culture. I mean, not just in regard to a lady, but a 10, right? That stuck like is like a perfect number, right? Something out of 10. I'll give it a, yeah. So there's one. One
Yeah.
is the loneliest number.
But
Number
you're
one.
number one, we're number one.
One is best,
Yeah.
right? Uh-huh. What other ones? What else do we have?
3.
3? What's 3? Trinity, okay. 3 could be a lot of things.
3 strikes.
3 strikes. 3 strikes and you're out. All right.
100,
100, what would that symbolize?
perfect.
Perfect.
100 on a test.
100 on a test, okay. 100%,
100%.
good. Things like that. Okay. So see, we have this, and this is what's going to be in that book, all right? And some of these are going to be different now because, like, I don't know, we don't have 12. 12 is not necessarily a big one to us, but to the Jewish people, very important for 12 tribes of Israel, okay? And then 12 apostles.
That's why we have a dozen eggs, right?
A dozen eggs, oh.
Sorry, that was
A baker's dozen, yeah, that's right. That's right, dozen. So in some ways, yeah, well, I guess we do have it then, this fullness, because that's like kind of the fullness. So I guess it does fit, we do have it. Nice going, Mike, that's good. See what you're doing without trying too hard. It's like this is in us. We got it. Okay, lastly, the proper name group over here, the ones that had the group discussion.
We're referring to Mike, he gave
We
an
came up
answer.
with leader, Mike.
Yeah.
Leader Mike,
Yeah.
okay.
So we wrote down Titanic, a
Titanic,
good one. Judas,
Judas. There's a proper name that
Traitor.
definitely means something.
McDonald's
McDonald's,
means, quick food, quick nutrition, quick.
the original.
Yeah, the original
fast food.
Fast food. Pope, is a symbol of, Pope is, just a symbol of, the church and the leaders of the church, leader of the church.
Oh, the Pope, you're saying?
Pope, yeah.
I thought you were saying Hope. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Pope.
The Pope.
Pope, yeah.
Okay.
You can take the mask off, Mike, just for this
Yeah,
one.
that's all right.
Yeah, and then, sorry, yeah. And then we had Lucifer.
The dope. You meant the dope, right? You said the dope. Is that what you said? Oh, the Pope. I'm sorry.
And then we've had Lucifer, which is like the proper name for the devil or Satan.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We threw a new one in there, Karen,
Karen,
which means a busybody, basically.
busybody.
Someone who
Okay.
complains or, wants to see the manager or
Right.
reports people who aren't wearing their masks. that kind of person.
Okay, go ahead, continue. Okay.
Teddy.
Teddy?
Which, is teddy bear.
Okay.
Everybody knows what that means when you say it,
That's good. A Teddy. Mm-hmm.
Then we had like Hitler, Mao, and Pol Pot as symbols of evil,
Mm-hmm.
dictators and genocidal dictators.
Hitler, right, definitely power.
And then the last one we put down was like St. Bede.
Of course.
And church, St. Bede is a proper name. Bede was a real person.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that all means to us is, our church.
Okay,
That's
so
about as far as we got.
thank you. That's fine. This is obviously these can't be exhaustive. The numbers one is pretty limited because we don't have a lot, but we do have some. So just you see, is this helping? I'm hoping really by the end of tonight you're going to be more comfortable with this kind of literature, just because we know things like this. So imagine you come across a piece of writing that has, these are called allusions. Okay, you're alluding to something. You're alluding to a proper name. You're alluding to the meaning that a number has or the meaning that a color has. So imagine you came across a piece of writing, which I am going to present to you later tonight, from our culture that had these kinds of colors, objects, animals in it. You would feel comfortable, right, with it. You wouldn't have to think too hard. You would know kind of what it's getting at. Okay, so even without us knowing exactly all the different allusions, so I understand that one of the writers said there are allusions to the Old Testament in almost every verse of the book of Revelation. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but that's a pretty extreme statement. But they would have been comfortable with it because they would have understood all these allusions. It was their culture. We don't necessarily have to understand all of those to get the message from it. Okay? So let's see. So we can just jump down now to, so we've already talked about some of these. So these are ones that are in the book of Revelation. So eyes, what do you think eyes are going to point to?
Sight.
Besides sight, I mean, that's an obvious one.
Mind.
Pardon?
Mind.
Mind? Yeah, like knowledge. So here's our expression. Do you see? Which means what? Do you understand? So see, we have it. Okay? The eye of... Do we have an expression? Like the eye of knowledge? Do we have that expression? I don't know. But in any case, so an eye is very likely pointing in that direction. Yes, Ed?
The eye of a hurricane.
The eye of a hurricane. Okay, so we could have that. Okay. Hands. What do you think hands might be?
Action.
Work.
Work, yeah. Action.
Action.
Possession or ownership.
Possession, ownership. Okay. The one he gave here was power. Okay.
Helping.
Pardon?
Helping.
Help me.
Helping. Helping. Helping hand.
Helping hands. Okay. About legs?
Strength, mobility.
Strength, mobility. Good. Okay. White hair.
Wisdom.
Old age. Wisdom. Very good. Oh, wise Kenneth. A mouth as a symbol.
Proclaim.
Yeah, something, so yeah, maybe something is being proclaimed, something important's being said if the mouth is pointing to something else besides itself. Okay, lion, ox, we've kind of talked about these. Dragon, sea monster, so also then connected with evil. So a lot of said mythical characters, which is true. Or in this book, it's going to be connected with evil, with the devil. The lamb, we talked about. Horns also could mean strength, huh? I think that's another one. Besides, so power, wings. How about wings?
Freedom.
Freedom,
Angels.
quickness, angels. Okay. Long robe, so that was mentioned earlier. Crown, you guys did that? Crown and ring, I think talked about that. Kind of association with a king. So what will be for the king? How would the ring connect? Remember what the ring, I think the ring had a couple different purposes for a king.
Rules all the other rings.
There was the seal, right, on the end of a ring, so then to know something that came from the hand of the king, they'll put wax on the sealing, the envelope, and then it's a signet. I think that was the name for it. Is that right? A signet ring?
Yeah.
So then it would create the impression in the wax, okay? So then it's symbolizing the power, right? The ring kind of authority. I think the Pope, there's a ring, isn't there? Kiss the ring, right, at the Pope?
Yeah.
Remember that one? Okay, so that one we have. Colored white, we talked about, red, kind of blood. Oh, you know what one we forgot? Remember the scarlet letter? Remember that one? So red, kind of associated, and that's in the Bible as well, like associated with sin. Though your sins be as red, isn't it? May they be white as wool. There's a phrase, and I can't think of it now. Can't remember what it was, but I think it might have been red. Purple, we talked about majesty, so 12, important for them. Thousands, kind of meaning about the same thing as us, okay? A multitude of something. 4. The 4 what?
Gospels.
4 Gospels. Actually, I think it's going to have that meaning in Revelation.
Is it the 4 horsemen?
Got the 4, there's going to be 4 horsemen, there's going to be 4 angels, 4 corners of the earth, I think is another one. East, west, north, south. Okay, so kind of like that. All right, so we're in the ballpark. Okay, now let's get to it. So apocalyptic literature itself. Okay, so here is the formal definition. I'd like to thank Ed Liggett, gave me a nice book. I took this from there. So 5 characteristics of this kind of literature. So first one, revelatory. So it's got to reveal something. All right? We talked about symbolism already. Number 2, narrative framework. So narrative, basically, it's telling a story. Third, the revelation is mediated by an otherworldly being, like an angel, or something sent from above, beyond here, to a human being. So this is a characteristic that all apocalyptic literature will have. Okay, there's a mediator. The mediator is an otherworldly being, and a human being gets the message. So John is getting the message, and then I understand that he is told, write this, very often in the book of Revelation. So he's the one entrusted with the message, and then it's his responsibility to pass it along. Number 4, it discloses or reveals a transcendent reality. So transcendent, okay, something that's beyond this world. So it's there's what it is revealing. And last of all, and I'm not sure if they sound kind of similar to each other, but in any case, the world has a different time. Now here's an important thing, because it envisions an ultimate salvation. Okay, like something at the end of it all, or even, we'll get to that later, but there is a salvation that is part of it, this goodness, the victory. Okay, this is part of apocalyptic literature. The message is going to be about salvation, victory, hope, okay, encouragement, those kinds of things. And different place, because it's beyond this world. So like I said, I don't know how that's different from the other ones. Okay, another important characteristic. Okay, now this is one we haven't talked about yet. It makes clear the 2 sides or 2 camps. It's like the ones with the white hats and the ones with the black hats. The good and the bad. The powerful and the weak. It separates things. The difference is clear and it's defined. In general, there isn't crossing back and forth between the 2 groups, but in Revelation, there's going to be a little bit of an exception, okay? And this is where the prophet genre of revelation comes through, because what was a prophet's role to do? So he's sent to a certain
To bring a message from God.
group
to people.
to bring a message from God. He's sent to bring this message, and the message is basically to turn back to God, because where were the people going?
Away from God.
Away from God, off to the other gods that were around. So the prophetic message then is a call to, all right, y'all keep heading in that direction, you're heading for disaster. You have shut God out of your life, and you are not going to have His help because you're not looking for it. You're not open to it, you're not asking for it, you've turned your back on Him, you're putting your trust in, so then idols would have been, the formal word for it. The image of adultery would be very important in this, because what did God have with the people of Israel? It was a covenant, right? Like you guys were talking, the ring symbolizing everlasting, the commitment, okay? So when they're off with the other gods, this is like adultery. So the prophet's role was to call the people back. So in other words, what I'm saying here is that the prophet side of things would have allowed and called for people to shift camps. Okay? But what this is saying, that in general, when you have apocalyptic literature, it's the good ones and the bad ones, and the two sides don't necessarily, they don't jump, okay? I gotta get some water. Questions,
Can I
anything?
ask you a question?
Yes, please do, because I can't talk right now.
The only word that perplexes me is oppressive. Because when I hear minority dominated and disenfranchised by the dominant oppressive word, I think, okay, the minority are the ones that have moved away from God, right?
When I was writing this, Lou, I was having the very same kind of thoughts, because it's not necessarily minority. It could be, right. So I guess the better thing to do is stay with dominant and powerful, and using the power in an evil manner. That's I think the gist of it. So I guess if you would just say typically what's going to happen is a majority is going to dominate and oppress a minority, but it's not necessarily always the case. Was that your question or concern or point?
Well, just oppressive denotes negativity.
There's going to be a lot of negativity.
Okay.
Yes, there is going to be.
So
It's going to be ugly. That is part of it. It's about violence very often, complete disenfranchisement, no what we call rights, or yes.
So it's not necessarily one is right and one is wrong.
Well, no, it's pretty clear, because in this whole thing, God is in the picture, and God is on the side of goodness and justice and right, and this dominant, powerful, whatever they are, who is doing this, or even an individual, a king or whatever, they're enemies of God, or God's people.
That's where I'm
Does that help?
I was thinking that the people on God's side were actually the dominant group, but that's not what this is saying.
No, it's the opposite, correct. So it's so it's because God's people, thank you for clarifying that, I didn't make that clear here. God's people are in general here, the oppressed, the ones that are being dominated and are suffering, are being persecuted. That is a big part of what this kind of literature is about. And so that's why the basic message is one of reassurance and hope and trust in this final victory. Okay, so the one little difference I was seeing, I don't know where, yeah, we'll get to it in a second, okay? So, okay, does that help? Anybody else? Are we okay? Okay, so here's some writing words about Daniel, okay, from the Old Testament, so chapter 7 through 12. So hopefully this will make things a little bit clearer. So what he maintains that history is completely under God's control. Okay, this is an important statement of faith because when you're in the middle of being oppressed by a powerful whoever, it's not going to feel like that, right? Like God is in control, correct? It's just a human experience of
Feels like you've been abandoned.
you're gonna feel like you've been abandoned. Where are you, God? Okay, right.
Helpless.
Helplessness and okay, so but the literature is going to make this very strong statement. I know it feels this way, but God is in control. It's an important piece of this. All right. That is just the point. He tells the story, so he, meaning Daniel, tells the story of the past in such a way that the persecuted Jews may understand that their suffering had a place in God's purpose. Make sense? Okay, this may feel like chaos is ruling right now and chaos has taken over the world. So this is back to, we're in Get Smart. There we go. Talk about mythical moments from the 60s when we were growing up. This is Get Smart. We're fighting the forces of control. Remember that? Maxwell Smart. So it feels like chaos. It's chaos. That's what they were called. They were called control. That's right. The good guys were called control.
Yeah, I think
The bad guys were chaos.
The bad guys were
That's
chaos.
right. That's right. So see, even things like Batman, all these things that we grew up with as kids, this isn't too different from this kind of literature because you got Batman and Robin, the boy one, and they're the good guys, and then you got Penguin and Joker and everything else. It's like very clear.
Yeah.
So it has this in common, kind of with fairy tales, which is very clear about who's wearing the good hats and who's wearing the bad hats. Okay,
Yeah,
this
just like a Western. You know?
like a Western.
Good guys
Mhm.
and there's bad guys.
Right. Okay. So your sufferings. So this is Daniel speaking to the Jewish people. Years just a few hundred before Christ. The book always looks to the final victory, to the time of the end, to the coming of the kingdom. So now, at that point, they were just looking to this, and it wasn't happening, but he's saying it's going to happen, so it's a statement of faith. It sees a messianic age about to dawn. So this is part of like these readings we're having right now. Are you the one who is to come? Or should we look for another? Jesus, the Messiah, the one who was coming. They were kind of like ready for this by the time of Jesus. It looks for a messianic age about to dawn beyond the time of tribulation, which would have been the present. Okay, so the literature is designed for the people who are going through hard stuff. All right. God's victory over the forces of evil is assured, and those who serve him faithfully will have a glorious part in his triumph. So then another big part of the message is hang in there. Hang in there. Envision in your mind God being in control of all of this, even though it doesn't feel this way. And then sufferings are going to be part of this. Okay? So then the final victory, where that would be different than for us, is where it's not that the victory is going to take place in the future. Where did the victory already take place for us as Christians?
Resurrection.
On the cross and the resurrection. Correct. So then you're going to get phrases in the book of Revelation, important phrases like the Lamb that was slain now lives. Okay, things like that become very important phrases. The victory was won. So I remember like early on, just thinking of it in terms of, okay, it's like a war. The victory has been won, but then what might still be going on? Like, what is it called? Like mopping up battles or something like that? Or it's like there are some battles that may continue to be fought, but the victory is already assured. There's no doubt about how this is going to turn out, but there still is struggle that is taking place. And that's kind of the situation the early Christians and of every age since, of course, Christ, we find ourselves in. The victory is assured, but we're in the middle of a struggle that is going to test us. Okay? Questions? So this is kind of like a lot of the essence of this whole kind of literature is these kinds of messages. Okay, I really like this one. Revelation was meant to be heard, to be listened to. Okay, now we're back to kind of our fairy tale thing. Remember? Like, these were meant to be told to children, to be listened to, and then to have their imaginations be stimulated. So in the book it says, blessed are they who have ears to hear. It was meant to be heard in the context of the liturgy, of the Mass. So imagine people gathered together, and I don't know, it sounds like they wouldn't have necessarily had like short readings like we do now. They might have been listening to long stretches of a book like this. The scenes, so picture the scenes would have unfolded with theatrical effect. So there's a drama to it, in the good sense of the word. The scenes were unfolding. Images would have flooded the imagination of the hearers, because remember, basically they're Jewish people and would have understood these images, just like we would understand those things we came up with earlier, those numbers, those references to Karen and all that kind of stuff, you know. But these images, it would just be one after another. The images would have flooded the imagination of the hearers. It would have flooded the hearers, carried along. So this is my comment now. Or maybe it just like kind of, as you're listening to this, like when you're really like, you know, you're at a play, it's all dark, and the only thing that's lit is the stage. It takes you to another world, right? And that's part of what's supposed to happen here, like where you are then transported, because it's like the curtain was pulled back and things are revealed to you. Things that we can't see with our eyes, but things that we know and have assurance of because of Christ and all the, you know, just how many centuries of God acting with the Jewish people. All of this is all like of a piece of a fabric. Powerfully evocative language. And then they would have been encouraged and warned by the firm word of hope. The worshiping community could have cried out, "Come, Lord Jesus." So they're listening to all this, carried along by it, and, you know, being pulled into like, he's won. But yet, it's still, there's darkness, okay? It's like that hymn I read at the beginning where, rejoice you heavens and you that dwell therein. But, you know, the devil's still here and he's going to come down in fury, and he's got a short time. So see, there's still the dark side of things are at play. But the victory is assured. Okay? I'll stop here. Questions? Comments? Everybody okay? Is this kind of making some good sense? Mr. Kenneth. Yes, Sir Kenneth.
So far, what you described that's going to happen when we actually get into it seems like it's definitely made for 2020.
It's made for 2020. Okay, it really does apply to about every age, but not necessarily more so our age. But yes, we're going to find, I think we can find ways in which we need this. And we already do, I think. Yeah. So this is, yeah, that's part of why I wanted to do this book. I thought this would be appropriate. There's a lot of, I mean, back to like the forces that are out there that are controlling our lives. It's just like, it's very confusing. And we don't know what to believe, right? That whole thing.
And fearful.
Fearful. And fear is being, right, fear is being paraded and trumpeted and, you know. Constant, right. So a book like this, you know, could be very helpful. All right, how's everybody doing on time? Do you want me to save my fun thing for the first part next week, or do you want it tonight? Are you ready? Oh my gosh, I was so excited about it. This is my favorite thing. Thank you. Sandy, hit the lights. Okay, so this was not just meant to be fun.
Father Tim, you dropped a piece of paper, don't trip.
That's okay, I have it all memorized. It's okay.
I don't want you to slide on it.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Slippery,
So this is not simply to be fun. I think it's going to be fun, but I also, when we're done, I want you to tell me whether or not you think what I wrote qualifies as apocalyptic literature. Okay? So remember all those points we talked about. Okay? So we'll talk about it at the end. Here we go. Need a little more light. I, Timothy, a fellow seeker of the ways of truth and justice, was carried off one evening after sunset by 3 large birds, an eagle, a hawk, and an owl, to a place I did not recognize. As I looked down, I saw a city. I was as if blinded by the lights of the city. Rubbing my eyes, I still could see nothing. The light I could see, but it may as well have been darkness, for it illuminated nothing. Then I heard a sound that started low and began to swell until it reached a crescendo, until finally, amid sounds of laughter and revelry, words began to become clear. It was chanting, rhythmic chanting with an intoxicating beat, as if the chorus of the entire city sang, "What happens here stays here. What happens here stays here." Bathed in light, yet nothing is clear. Our secrets well kept. We are without peer. What happens here stays here. It was then that I realized I was brought to see and hear things that are not well known. And the eagle, the hawk, the owl. What the hell?
Did you unplug it, plug it back in? You use the battery. Hopefully it'll work. Yeah. Oh, no, you will. Right? There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to do that?
Thanks, Ken.
You got it.
Check, 1, 2. I'm sorry. Nuts. Just right. Do we start all over again? Okay. It was then that I realized I was brought to see and hear things that are not well known. The eagle and the hawk and the owl nodded in agreement. For that was their mission, to carry me to this place of seemingly eternal light and well-shrouded darkness, to witness the fall of this great city and to learn of its secrets before it fell. Then, as if a curtain were drawn on a great stage, the lights began to dim, and I was able to discern the sizes and shapes of things. First, I, Timothy, saw the kings and the queens of this great city rise up. I counted them. There were 4 kings and 4 queens. And they too realized that their great city was in her death throes. And so they began to count their subjects in hurried desperation. One by one, they counted them. And the 4 kings and the 4 queens counted 44 subjects, all of whom were sensing the terror that was upon them. As clubs were closed, hearts were broken, diamonds turned to dust, and darkened spades grew pale. Then 2 jesters of their court clamored for attention from the kings and queens, wanting to be counted among the 44 subjects, but they refused. Then I, Timothy, heard another song coming from the 44 subjects, and no sooner Then they began their chant. The kings and queens themselves joined in the mournful dirge and sang, "Alas, 21 is soon to be done, as well as our fun. But it was quite a run, and now it's done. The ficted fables of our tables and the chanced glory of our story. Alas, it is done, but oh, what a run, and oh, what fun. But all is undone, and worst of all, 21. Then I watched. It was as if their chanted words, the ficted fables of our tables, had power to conjure up and bring to life the spirit within those tables that had previously been lifeless. I then saw 2 of the 4 legs of the tables turn to arms, and the tables began to dance, each in its turn, standing upright, throwing their newfound arms high in the air with a great display of despair. "Oh, crap!" cried the first. "Oh, crap!" screamed a second. "Oh, crap!" said the third. But 3 craps were not enough to express the depth of their lament. Then more craps were heard as each table came to life. Once the last table was awakened, together they sang a song of woe. 7 is shit, 11's been split. Every cast of the dice has the look of snake's eyes. Then, as I watched, a creature emerged from the swirling light. It had a face but no eyes. It had 1 arm but no ears. It took its place in a long row with other one-armed creatures like itself. The sounds they made pierced the air as if they were consumed with hunger. "Will no one feed us?" they cried. "Does no one care? Will no one feed?" These poor, deprived, one-armed creatures now in despair. But no one made a move to feed them the gold and silver food they craved. Finally, I, Timothy, saw a great city awaken as if it had a form of a woman. She rose like foam from the midst, like a statue of Venus de Milo, naked in marbled beauty, but no sooner than the mist cleared, her beauty faded. And she was wearing a sagging cloak of red and gray. She made a move to speak when all the people whom she had known cried out in fear, "Oh no, Elavie, oh no, Elavie, have mercy on me. Speak not, I pray thee, tell not what thou didst see, for it will surely be the complete end of me. Oh no, please no, Elavie." But Elavie only laughed and said, "It was all in fun, but now it is done. It was too much fun, but now it is done." And Elavie told everything she knew, but the people did not laugh, for everything was now revealed. All right, who can explain? This is an American apocalyptic.
You flew over Roxino, right?
Good job.
That's Las Vegas.
Did you get it?
Las Vegas, yeah.
It's Las Vegas.
Oh, Roxino.
44 and 8 makes 52 cards.
44 subjects and 4 kings and queens.
Kings and queens.
Oh, you weren't getting this while I was reading it?
And a one-armed.
One-armed creature. Oh, I got you guys.
Not me.
Not you, not Mike, not Mike.
But I don't know what Elavie is.
Elavie.
What?
Elavie.
Oh, Elavie.
Oh, Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, the initials. It's gotta be code. It's gotta be cryptic, mysterious.
Las Vegas, because you gave the what stays here, what happens here.
What stays? Yeah, I thought you guys would get it after that. That was the obvious one.
When you got it?
Yeah.
What happens here stays here. What happens here stays here. And this is the drama of we can't tell what.
Right.
What was the eagle and the hawk?
Who's the eagle and the hawk? Why did I pick an eagle and a hawk?
Well,
Were you flying them?
They were. I was flying on them. Yeah.
They're big birds.
Eagle and hawk, and then owl. Okay, like knowledge, wisdom,
Eyesight, yeah.
eyesight.
Yeah.
Okay, because things were about to reveal to me. Cool, huh?
Yeah.
I had fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Okay, now the key question is, would this qualify as apocalyptic literature from what we've learned tonight?
Well, you did give us a vision of the future that was revelatory.
Okay, so actually the correct answer is no.
Yeah.
It's not even close. The only really thing it has in common with apocalyptic literature is something was revealed, but what was revealed was simply of this world.
Yeah, there wasn't another world.
There is no other world. There is also no question of the good hats and the bad hats, the white hats and the dark hats, right? The good people and the bad people. This is all just, okay, here's what, it's kind of like this is the way it goes, right? This is what goes on here, and we all kind of wink and nod, and yeah, it's all right, it's not great, but nobody's going to talk about it, but well, you can't trust, so we're going to talk about it. But it isn't clear, like there's the good side and the bad side. It's just, here's how things like this will happen in life. Cities will, this could have been a story about COVID in Las Vegas, right? If COVID brings Las Vegas down. And then it's just about this lament, this dirge of the kings and the queens. Yeah, 21. You got 21? Did you get that one?
Yeah.
Okay, that was blackjack. That was not adults. Now see, there's 21. Could have been some different things. Not becoming an adult, but...
And then the crap tables.
The crap tables. Oh, crap.
11, snake eyes.
7. I'm sorry that I said that bad word, but I thought it was followed directly from crap tables, right? Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Okay, so it really, it's got the feel and a lot of symbols where it kind of pulls you in. You're very curious, what is this about? And yet you're interested, kind of mysterious, but it's revealing something. But it wouldn't qualify as apocalyptic literature because there wasn't necessarily about some final victory or as if somebody in here was suffering outside of the fact that the city is falling apart, but there's no judgment of God is not in this story, okay? And, the other one, remember, an angel has to mediate. Remember that one? No angel mediated it, okay? I just was carried away, so this could have just been a product of my imagination, right? Okay?
It is a product of your imagination.
It is, right? And I wasn't drinking heavily when I wrote this. I just want to make that clear. So, yeah. But no, I thought it would be fun. So, very good. Okay, so we will meet in a couple weeks, and then we'll. So the other thing I would suggest to you is maybe just start reading the book. Like I said, check your head a little bit at the door. Don't get too hung up on things. Just try to feel it. Let like we did here. Let the images wash over you, or if you have someone in the house, have them read the book to you so that you listen to it or take turns reading it to each other, and just try to get the feel for it, and that's go a long way. Okay? All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you in a few weeks. Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.